Welcome to the Hardscape Huddle, the ultimate podcast for contractors looking to elevate their game in the hardscaping world. I am your host, Kyle Staffa. On this show, we're all about sharing the knowledge and skills you need to excel your craft and build your business. From mastering the latest installation techniques and staying ahead of industry curves, the Hardscape Huddle is your trusted resource for all things hardscape construction. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just getting started, we've got the tools and tips to help you build the business and exceed your clients' expectations. Join us each week as we sit down with industry experts, share insider secrets, and deep dive into the nitty-gritty of hardscape design and installation. Get ready to level up your skills and take your contracting business to new heights. Thank you for tuning in to the Hardscape Huddle. I'm your host, Kyle Staffa. Tonight we are with Chris and another gentleman by the name of Mike. Today's focus is going to be on labor, how to find employees, how to maintain your employees, just different things that employees are looking for out of their employers. So we're going to start tonight with Chris here. Chris represents Ocean County PIC. Chris, what is Ocean County PIC?
Ocean County PIC, which is part of the Ocean County Career Center. We are a part of the one-stop career center for Ocean County. It's split into two, where half is the employment services, and the other half is for people going for training.
Okay.
So we're in the training part where we send people to get CDL, heavy equipment operator, office, a million other things that's in demand. When they're done, my job as a career placement specialist, career transition specialist, is to help them find that next job. Now, it's difficult to do sometimes, but when it happens, it's spot on.
Right. Well, we recently just received or had the opportunity to hire a candidate for our yard position. So I thank you for that. And he's working out very good. We recently hired a driver, a CDL driver, Class A. So that, again, that was very good. So we'll get back into that. Our next guest tonight is Mike Decker from All Search Recruiting. How are you tonight, Mike?
Good. How are you? Thanks, Kyle.
Can't complain. So tell us a little bit about All Search and what it is you do.
Absolutely. So All Search Recruiting, we are based in York, Pennsylvania. The majority of us work remotely. I'm actually in Reading, Pennsylvania. Our company has been around for the past 23 years or so. We are a direct hire search firm focusing on placing folks nationwide. I run the construction practice here at All Search. My team is comprised of myself and then 10 recruiters across the country who recruit construction professionals. So project managers, superintendents, estimators, things of that nature. We place them on a direct hire contingent basis. So typically they are our clients' full-time employee from day one, but no fees are paid to All Search unless we find a candidate that works out for you guys.
Okay. And you said you handle nationwide.
That's correct. And we have placed, sometimes that we've placed in Canada as well as in Italy as well. So we placed pretty much anywhere they need construction folks, we've worked on them. And
Chris, are you just Ocean County, or is there other programs in New Jersey through the counties or follow, bordering states?
I do just Ocean County. Now, that doesn't mean I can't send people to other areas. Other counties do it different. All of them don't have a person like me. They're more on the employer side. They'll be like, okay, we'll just set up job fairs and stuff like that, where I do more of the, hey Kyle,
one-on-one.
More one-on-one, which is, to me, the way it really should be. And what I mean is, I get to know who you are, and I get to know what you want, as well as the potential employee, because now I know they're going to work out for you, or hope they work out for you for a long time, instead of just, oh, they're there for 6 months and then they're gone, or 2 weeks and then they're gone. I want somebody at your place for 5, 6, 10 years, if that's possible.
Right. Longevity.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I hired a Class A CDL through you probably 4 or 5 years ago. And,
4 years ago.
he's done very well for us. So, I thank you for that. I have used All Search with pretty good success, and Mike and his team went above and beyond. So, Mike, thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kyle.
So, I have a couple of questions for both of you guys as we get into tonight's episode. Is keeping in mind we are all blue collar people, and this podcast, just so you guys know, the podcast was started to educate employers, employees working for companies more along the hardscape and masonry fields, but more, it also applies to construction, development, and things like that as well. We're trying to elevate this industry and be better in it, right? So by trying to raise the bar, we also have to raise the people working for us. And us as business owners, we have to bring better opportunity to the guys as well. So it's a partnership. I always look at it as. So let's talk a little bit about how the employees should probably vet the employers and likewise on the other end. So is there like a list of questions you provide the potential candidates, or how does that all work?
For me, I always tell the employee to do the research on the company. Now, how do you do research? I tell them, check the Google reviews. Go in there, look at their review. And I always tell them a story I did. I did car sales for 10 years, and I was looking to get out of it. I was burned out. I went to a RV place, and their Google review was horrible. Well, okay, I'll go for the interview because I said I would. And I asked the guy, I was like, why is your Google review so bad? And he's like, it was the service department that drug it down. It was not anything. It satisfied my question. So you got to do what you look and you hear, but also you got to be careful because sometimes you fall into that. It's all negative. Do your research and ask questions that are concerning to you. You don't have to go into the part of like, how's the culture? I'm only working 5 hours a day. Am I real questions, what's the normal work week? Is it 40 hours or is it 60 hours?
Right.
Am I getting paid overtime? Stuff like that. Those are questions that should be asked. But it gets a little bit crazy sometimes, and you want to make sure you're not, you have to interview as an employee. I need to interview you, but I don't need to go to an extreme and wait for my turn to ask the question.
Right.
Like once you're done interviewing me, then I'm going to take 5 or 6 questions and ask you questions.
Right, and some of those questions you may already know the answer by reading those Google reviews.
Right.
That's a great point. Mike, what do you think about that? Vetting the employer as well.
It's very important. It's a partnership you're signing up for if you're deciding to work for somebody. And it's just as important for the candidate or their future employee to make sure it's a good fit for them, for their families. When work-life balance is very important. So if you're going to be working, 60 hours, like Chris said, you got to know that up front. For us, we have, an interview prep call with our candidates before they speak with our clients, really going over, what their expectations are, what our clients' expectations are, and then making sure they're prepped for that interview, as well as making sure they check out their website, because it is important to know exactly what you're walking into.
I don't disagree with anything you guys are saying. It can be a little bit cumbersome to vet every employee. So we do, as an employer, I do rely on you guys a little bit to do some of that vetting for us. And, hopefully it gets done to our liking. Sometimes, people don't always tell the truth. So how do we get around that? Is there any questions to ask to kind of, I'm not going to say trip them up, but how do we get around somebody telling us the truth versus what their resume may say?
Trust your gut. And what I mean by that is you've had your own business for a while, so you kind of know when people are lying to you, or at least maybe not telling the truth.
Yeah, stretching it a little bit.
A little bit. And we all stretch the truth a little bit, but there's a way that you can tell. At least, 10 years in the car business and knew when somebody was lying to me and saying, oh, I can only do this when I know not. And that's not the most important thing they need on the car. But, you learn to sense that. As an employer, if you feel that there's a question that they were kind of extremely vague on, I would circle around back to that question towards the end. Maybe reword it a little bit different so it's not, maybe you trip them up, like you said, but you're not tripping them up in a way that they know they're being tripped up.
And then, we should probably set expectations, I would think, too. And Mike, you brought this up a little while ago in the vetting process. What about, what should we look for on resumes or job applications? Because let's face it, a lot of our industry in the masonry supply, and we see it at Staff of Stone, is we're just getting applications. Some people have limited experience, and some people have supposedly 20, 30 years in the industry, but yet they don't have a resume that tells us that. They just are coming in to fill out the application. So what is it we should be looking for to vet that whole process, and what should be our expectations, so to speak?
That's a great question, Kyle. And that's a really difficult one to answer because in the construction industry, a lot of folks don't have the best resume. So they have an Indeed resume where they put in their information and it types out everything they've done, but it's hard to really know what that person's done just off of that piece of paper. So it's really hard to say what the expectation is without talking to that person.
Right. And sorry to cut you off, but I guess to that point is when they're filling out just a resume, just an application, it's not, most of the business owners that I deal with on a daily are working in their business, not necessarily on their business, meaning, they're in the field, they're laying bricks, they're laying block, they're mixing concrete. And that is all well and good. It's just when it comes time to interview guys, it sometimes can be out in the field, at a job site, which is not the best, but again, it's the time that they have allotted. So they've got to be, how do I say this? They've got to know what to look for right out of the gate, know what to look for on that application that is a telltale sign to hire this person or to pass on them.
Kyle, you just brought up a good point. One thing that I would say, if you do see a resume or an application, if someone is pretty job hoppy, they've had a job for 5 months, then the next one is 8 months, then a month here or there, usually is going to tell you that person isn't going to be a long-term employee for you guys. Sure, there are situations where, COVID happened and people were leaving jobs because the work just wasn't there. But if you're seeing someone get a new job every other month, it's probably for a reason. It might not be the most, reliable employee for you guys.
Right. No, that's a great point. I thank you for that point.
Kind of piggyback off of what Mike was saying. You also, if the employer can only do something in the field, well, that might be a great time just to give them a quick test. Hey, can you do this real quick?
X, Y, and Z.
Like you did with one of my guys. You took him out on the road, and he made a few mistakes, but then he fell into a pattern and he felt comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of let's just drive it down to Cape May and back, but that gave you enough of understanding of what this kid can do. And his resume, he didn't have any experience, but he had his training and he kind of took that step and really wanted the job and really made sure he was prepared.
So one thing I have fallen accustomed to is always looking for somebody with experience in the hardscape masonry supply business. And that's because I was busy working in the business as well. And I still work in the business, don't get me wrong, but I've surrounded myself with some really great employees, and I've got the opportunity to do things like this and work on the business. I do look at the candidates that have potential. Yes. If I'm hiring a CDL driver, maybe he, grinds a couple gears. Every truck shifts slightly different. But we have to look at the potential of the candidate. And can we mold them to what we want or what our expectations are? So if you are an employee out there, again, don't be afraid to show up on the job with, limited experience. And if you're with the right company, they will teach you what they want you to know. That's how my personal feeling is, at least. And again, if you guys feel different, just please speak up. So now we've vetted the candidates. They vetted us. Now we are fortunate enough to hire a good CDL driver, or more, maybe a lead mason or a architect on a job site, project foreman possibly. How do we set the expectations early of what that job is going to entail? Okay, I know a lot of guys out there don't necessarily have job descriptions. Mike, is that something you can help, the employee or their future boss? Is that something you explain to them ahead of time?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we have our initial conversations with potential clients, we go over kind of their organization, exactly who they're looking for, and then kind of come up with the job description they might not have. We go through, what does the day-to-day look like? What are some of the top 3 things you're looking for? That doesn't have to be the most in-depth job description, but you should have, an outline, at least in your mind, of who this person needs to be and what kind of duties they've had in the past and what they're going to have at your organization. That way, when you have those initial talks, that person, that potential employee, comes in knowing what to expect working for your organization. And there's nothing, misconstrued in the initial phone conversation or interview. And then they get there day one and it's not what they expected, or their experience isn't what you thought it was. And then you have to start all over and you wasted a bunch of time.
And sometimes, as we all know, and you probably know yourself out in Reading, PA, we're in a seasonal business. The masonry and hardscape business is very seasonal for us, and as it is in most construction things. So time is of the essence. What does the hiring process look like with either of your your organizations?
I take a slow start to it, because I want to make sure I get to know them, so that when I'm talking to an employer, I know as much as I know about them, and say, you know what, Kyle, give him a chance. He might not have it on the paper, but he has something that's not there, the intangible. So that's why I work a little bit slower. I really try to talk to him a couple times. And each time I talk, it's about an hour and a half. So I just kind of getting to know them, so I know, okay, Kyle's looking for this out of a guy. He doesn't have it on the paper, but I know he can do the job. I know he can do what needs to be done.
Let's take that chance.
And let's take the chance. But if I had a guy that's got 20 years experience, but I just don't feel he's just there for a paycheck, and he could care less. He's not gonna, I've been in the business forever. That might not be the right fit for you.
Right. So are you taking, not to put you on the spot, but are you taking an hour, 2 hours to vet these people, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I take time to vet them, because I want to know who I can trust them to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're giving me a headache, being non-committal, being late to a session,
mm-hmm.
well, you know what? I'm not going to refer them to one of my.
So they're coming into your office to vet them.
Right. It's all in person.
Okay.
I've gotten away from doing it on the phone and what have you. I've made it more in person, so that, hey, I get to see you. I get to talk to you. But you know what? Do you come in 5 minutes early? Okay, that's cool. Do you come in 20 minutes late? That's something else. Or do you just plain no show, no call? Those are the people that I know right off the bat. They're my least priority. They're the people that I'm just going to send them job leads as I see them.
Gotcha.
I'm not going to do like I've done with people with you in the past. Try to set up the interview and tell them, make sure they're there. Because I'll get you the interview. You have to take it to the finish line.
Right.
I do a little bit of prep in there for interviewing, so they're kind of relaxed, because some people haven't interviewed in a while, but that's the general principle.
Yeah. And I guess it is very good, though, that you get to see how they carry themselves, how they how they represent themselves, and what their wardrobe is. And sometimes candidates are unfortunate. They find themselves in unfortunate situations. But as long as they come in clean cut and, looking halfway decent, then as long as that employer's willing to take that chance, I guess, right? And it's always panned out for us.
There's more diamonds in a rough than there is anything.
Right.
But that's where my 2 hours of talking to them. I had a gentleman come in who was homeless. They thought he was here for something else, but he's like, no, I'm looking for a job. And I'm talking to the kid. He's got tattoos on his hands, tattoos up his neck. And I'm like, to me, that's a non-starter. But you start listening to the kid, and it's like, there's something there. I call up a buddy of mine. I'm like, listen, I got a kid. He's got some he can work on stuff. He's understands electronics and
so he's tech savvy.
a little tech savvy, not crazy, but he can fix stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't know he's been one of his best employees.
That's great.
Again,
can't judge the book by its cover.
Exactly. That's why you take the 10, or for me, the 2 hours, because I want to know why you're homeless.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? Was it just a unfortunate circumstance and you're trying to build yourself back up? Are you putting in the work to try?
Right.
Because if you're not putting,
if it's coming to you or to Mike, then that person's willing to try and willing to put the best foot forward. I feel anyway. Mike, I guess you're fortunate where you get to probably Zoom everybody if you can't meet them in person.
Yeah, I haven't met a candidate in person in a long time since pre-COVID. I've been working remote ever since. So a lot of our stuff is over Teams or over phone calls. And Kyle, you touched on this earlier. Our job is to vet the candidates before they even get to our clients, because we're trying to save our clients time with not having interviews that aren't with candidates that aren't up to task what they're looking for.
Right.
So for us, very much like Chris, we're talking to them for 45 minutes to an hour, going over their background, going over what they're looking for in a new position. If they are working, why are they looking to leave their current role? If it's just for hey, I need $5 an hour more, it's probably not the best for our client, because if someone else calls them and says I need $6, they'll give them $6. They're going to jump, and our client's out of an employee. So yeah, really, we're just having that conversation and then coordinating those interviews with our clients to the best of their ability.
So Staff of Stone does look to expand, and we will expand into different regions of New Jersey and hopefully throughout the country here, in the future. But I've got to ask you, Mike, how do you handle something? You're located in Reading, and how do you fill a position in San Antonio or Texas, or I think you said Italy, right?
Yes, that's a great question. I actually have an employee in Texas. We have an employee in Montana and New Mexico. So I like to tell people, we have every time zone covered. But it is challenging when you're 3 hours away. I'm on the East Coast and I have candidates in California. It's really just about what you want your schedule to be. If you're willing to work a couple extra hours to get on the phone with those folks and have those interviews, it really just depends.
Yeah, sometimes language barriers can be an issue, though.
Exactly. Yep.
So now that we are fortunate enough to hire one or two or multiple candidates, as an employer, how do we keep them? What are some of the things employees are looking for? Is it better pay, better health care? I can tell you at Staff of Stone, we do offer healthcare packages, benefit packages, retirement, things like that. But there are some guys out there that don't offer it, and things like that. So what is it employees are looking for from their employers?
Pretty much everything you just said. They're looking for everything. Health insurance is not cheap. You get sick, you have bills piling up. So having a health insurance is a big one, at least from guys I talk to. The money is important, but they know if they get the overtime, that can make it up. Sick days, believe it or not, having a boss that's going to say, are you sick, or you just want the day off? You say, I know I got COVID, or I'm really sick. And having a boss that's not going to say, well, get in here anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's outside, but sometimes taking a day off recharges them, gets them better faster, so they're more productive for the long haul.
Yeah, I mean, we ask a lot of our guys in the trades business, and sometimes we burn each other out.
Yeah.
So I get that day off. Sure.
And that's one thing that I think COVID really opened the eyes up to corporate America was, you got to take those days off, and you hope that it trickles down to the trades, to the sales teams, that, hey, you know what? I'm not feeling good. I'm not going to push through because I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to make everybody else miserable. It's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to my boss, who's going to say, what's wrong with you? And get into an argument and possibly, leave and do something stupid or quit and being like, it's not worth it.
Mike, are you seeing similar to that?
Absolutely. And I agree with everything Chris said. I did want to add company culture is extremely important. They're going to look for a company that has longevity with their employees. If they don't want to see somewhere where, employees quitting every other day and they're working with a different guy on the site or a different salesperson. So building up that company culture and, giving people days off when they need it, that goes into that as well. And just, being employee friendly is super important to people nowadays, especially with health insurance. If they have a company vehicle, I hear that all the time in construction. Are they going to pay for my gas? How am I getting to the job site? Kyle, I'm sure you hear it all the time.
Yep.
Do I get a truck? Yeah. So the benefits and all that are great. The money's great, but also company culture is super important nowadays.
I think one of the biggest things that people have to realize as an employee is, to Mike's point, is the company culture. And maybe that's even a vetting question for the employee to ask the employer. Like, let's say you're hiring a foreman or something like that, is how long is the current crew been together? If I'm going to lead these guys basically into battle, so to speak, are they going to follow? Are they going to, respect new leadership?
Yep, exactly.
So I think that might actually be a good question. You just touched on something there, Mike.
Yeah, that's a great point. And if this person, say it is a foreman, if they're coming in to replace a former foreman, a good question for that employee to ask is, hey, why did that person leave? Did they quit because, the crew wasn't listening and didn't respect them, or, what had happened? It's also a good question to ask when you're interviewing.
Let's talk healthcare for a minute. Yes, to Chris's point earlier, healthcare gets very, very cost prohibitive, especially here, in New Jersey. What are you finding for employers? Are they splitting the cost 50-50, or are they going full in?
I don't get into it with the employers. I've been lucky where I work. I don't, mine's covered 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But, when I worked in the car business, I had the lion's share, and it was, thank God my wife had the insurance covered.
Right.
But it was expensive if I was to go on their plan. I'm like, I wouldn't be able to afford it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be working just for the healthcare. So it almost needs to be 50-50 or 60-40 to really make it
feasible
for the employee, not just to be working for the healthcare. You want them to also prosper in a way that, they're going out buying maybe not a brand new truck, but they're buying a used truck,
mm-hmm.
Or they're buying a new house for the family.
Right. So by splitting healthcare, it allows them to have a little extra disposable money.
Right. And makes that where they feel better that, you know what, Kyle's taking care of me. He's taking a little bit more of a burden. I'm going to stick it out. Even if it's a rough time, I'm going to stick it out with him because I know he's doing right by me.
We're going to circle back to what Mike was saying a minute ago about, culture and things like that of a corporation. And for us, sometimes that the culture also allows, if they all get along, let's say you have a group of 5 guys on your staff and they all get along, and somebody comes in and offers them 50 cents more an hour, maybe they interview there, but that culture is just not a fit, and that sticks with them, and they decide to stay with you, even if it's 50 cents or 60 cents, less an hour or something like that. But again, I guess with all that being said, Mike, and you can probably attest to this, is if you offer the package, people will stay with you. In fact, I may have learned that through Mike and All Searches, but sometimes people want better benefit packages.
Absolutely. Definitely if they have a family too. If, like we were talking about a minute ago, if their current employer is only covering 50%, but the next employer can cover 100, they might take a hit on that, base salary or hourly just to get that health insurance.
Oh, so you're saying they may take a pay decrease actually?
Absolutely. If their future employer can cover 100% of themselves and their families, yeah, absolutely.
Mike, are you finding that the bigger, say, framing contractors or plumbing contractors, are they offering retirement plans, or how is that all panning out?
Absolutely. I would say the majority of the companies we work with offer retirement plans. So they're given 401k with a match. Usually it's a certain percentage, so between 3 and 6% match, starting within the first 90 days.
Wow, 6%'s a good one.
Yeah,
I'll send you my resume.
That's not the norm.
Yeah. So we offer a 401k at Staff of Stone as well. We do a match, and I think that has helped people stay. Yeah, and it was a big thing when we first got started, and we couldn't pay everybody top dollar, but we offered some healthcare. We offered a 401k, and guys, like Mike says, decided to join our staff rather than others.
And Kyle, people ask about it when we're talking to candidates. They ask, "Hey, do they offer a 401k? What do the benefits look like?" So that's in their mind even before they interview with you. They want to know, "Hey, what am I walking into? What does this package look like?"
Right. So they're doing the vetting through you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They want to, because people will just back out of the interview process if there isn't health benefits, because they might have someone at home who needs medication, and if that opportunity isn't there for health benefits, they're not going to be interested.
Do either of you know the cost of health care for, say, like a family of 4? I don't know this answer, so
I don't know either, because like I said, my wife has it, but it's through the state. She works for the state, so I don't know what those numbers are, but I know it's not cheap.
Not cheap. Yep.
Yeah. Mike, do you have any idea, just to give the viewers a
I think it's probably, for a family of 4, probably $1,000 plus a month.
Yeah, so it's not very inexpensive, guys. I mean, so you got to factor that in. If they're offering $16, $18, $20 an hour plus 50% of your medical, now the package is starting to look pretty decent.
Yeah,
that adds up. Absolutely.
Yeah. How about disability insurance, vacation time, standard 2 weeks paid vacation? Is that about what the industry's seeing?
It is for me, absolutely. And we definitely have folks that want to negotiate PTO, and that really depends on the client if they're able to do that or not. But we're saying right off the bat, 2 weeks is pretty standard still.
Okay.
Yeah, or at least a week.
Okay.
When I started in the car business, it was 1 week you got.
Okay.
Then you got bumped up to 2 after a year.
Now, are your candidates asking about vacation, and kind of like Mike just mentioned?
Not really. My people are not asking about vacation. Right now, their main concern is getting back to work because they've been out of work. Some of these people have been out of work 6, 9, 12, 18 months because they can't find anything, or they went through training to help them get something. So they're like, I just need to get a job and I'll worry about everything later.
Yep.
But that's where me coming in knowing, what, Kyle gives them 2 weeks vacation, right away, they'll work out good. But if I don't know, I tell the people also, I don't know what their packages are. That's a question for you to ask in the interview to make it, and let me know so I know moving forward what's, maybe that's a company that I'm not going to work with if they don't give, you don't pay medical at all.
And this particular candidate has a family of 4, right? And
so it's like, I'm not going to waste my time, or the next person that comes in that would be a perfect match. But they need that medical. I'm not going to send somebody to a position where they're going to fail. I want them to prosper as well as the employer prosper, because when everybody prospers, that's when it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of why we're here. We want everybody to prosper. We want whether you're a mason contractor, a drywall contractor, we want to raise this elevation up a little bit, and so everybody makes more money. You see some of the union trades, they're billing out $100 per man hour. Do I think we'll ever get to that point? It'd be nice to, but I don't think we'll get there. But we can definitely raise our hourly billables. And how do we do that? We get better candidates, better education. And it starts by educating the employer, I feel.
If there's training that your guys can go to, or your people, I should say, to help them maybe sharpen skill, learn a different way of doing hardscape. It might be something that's so simple, or like that really makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But what? Maybe that's something that you look into that says, all right, you three are going to go do this week. Next 2 weeks after that, we're going to send a couple of other guys. So it gets split up so that they're all learning. And if it's a potential certificate that they get at the end, well, that just makes you look even better.
Right.
That makes the candidate look better, or the employee. So it's, again, prospering, and everybody's just elevating themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This question's for Mike, and it just came to me. Mike, do you deal anything with like trade schools or vocational schools and help finding candidates that way to fill positions to the trades?
That's a great question. So we do, if we're working, for example, if we're working in York, Pennsylvania, I think York Technical Institute is there. We would reach out to them and say, hey, we have this position. And I think they posted on their website. I was going to say, while Chris was just talking, it popped in my mind. I work with a couple clients who work with some local high schools in their area and have an open house where the students can come to their office and kind of see what they do, and then maybe get an internship or an entry-level job out of high school, just to drum up some more candidates for the labor pool, because it is really drying up. So reaching out to those local resources such as high schools or trade schools is super important.
This will be the third year we're doing Construction Expo at Blue Claw Stadium on May 15th. All the students in the VOTEC school come with 40 employers looking to potentially hire these kids. So the kids are coming in and they're starting out at decent money. It's also open to the public. So, it's a guy that's like, I need a job, but, nobody's willing to talk to me. Well, here's an opportunity for it.
Right.
And we're trying to even get the younger kids, 7th, 8th, 9th graders, thinking that the trades are not a bad thing. Like we did for years. You saw a garbage truck, a trash man. That trash man's making $30, $40 an hour. Yeah, he might smell, but he's making money and is loving life.
Mm-hmm.
Going to college is starting to become not as important to some people,
mm-hmm.
and are looking at the trades to make money because they.
So that's a great point you both bring up. Are we seeing an influx of younger individuals into the trades?
Definitely.
I think so.
That's great. I'm glad to see that. I have my son involved in the business. We have another younger sales associate. I think he's in his early 20s as well. And it's just becoming obvious that there is an influx of younger hardscape landscape contractors coming into our network of business. So it is exciting to finally see that again, because I think you're right. When I was in school, it was, you have to go to college. Well, I currently use just a little bit of my college degree. There's a large percentage of kids that never use their college degree and are just indebted for 30 years.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear you both say that. And then what is the percentage of the younger kids coming into the trades that are finding jobs? Mike, you said you're working with a couple of the VOTEC schools. I think out near State College or Williamsport, I think there's a large VOTEC school out there as well. Is that true? And then are people willing to take the chance on the younger generation coming out of that trade school?
Great question. I don't work with the one out near State College. to be honest. I would say, so we do get a bunch of kind of entry-level roles, whether that be a drafter type position or an assistant project manager, where they're definitely willing to take a chance on somebody, but they're very competitive because there's only so many opportunities. But there's a lot of folks trying to get into the trades, whether that's out of college or out of high school. The kids graduating college who have a construction management degree, their first step is assistant project manager or a drafter or a project engineer, things of that nature. There's only so many spots for those kids.
I see a lot of kids getting hired, or at least getting looked at more, because the company's like, you know what? Let's take a chance on him. Let's mold him into what we want. Instead of having a guy that's been in the business 20 years who's got all the bad habits in the world, take the chance to mold them into what you want. And you're starting to see more and more of that. It's getting harder, unfortunately, for the older generation, because people are taking these shots out with these young kids that they can mold, but experience is something that you can't teach, so the older guys have to, up their game a little bit.
Okay, and how do they up their game to get noticed, in your opinion?
Doing the same thing that you do every day and do it well. Asking your supervisor, your foreman, I'm doing this right, I found a little trick, talking to them to make sure that you're going to the point where they know you are dedicated to improve, to not be making the same mistake, but also hope that the foreman's not being like, what's this guy doing? He's been here for 5, 10, 15 years. But that's where a lot of communication can come in to really make the guy understand, oh, he might be wanting to become a foreman and wanting to make sure he's not making too many stupid mistakes. Thinking that advancement, that's where, if you have an educated guy who's wants to move up, that's a good person.
So, Chris, if I'm sitting home today listening to this podcast and I am a mason in Monmouth County, New Jersey, I call you tomorrow because I'm looking for a lead foreman or lead block layer for foundations. What is the fee associated with your program?
With our program, as well as any one-stop career center in New Jersey, it's free.
It's free.
There's no fees associated. What we can do for you, there's a lot of options we have. We can put on a job fair for you. Maybe we do a big one. Maybe we do just a targeted one. We can do job orders where we use the state's database of everybody that's been unemployed ever, put it in there. And now, you're looking for a foreman, bricklayer, you're very specific, and we can send out the job leads to all the people that match.
Okay.
And are they going to answer? Not necessarily, but it's a opportunity to possibly, maybe they were thinking about moving.
Right.
Maybe they were thinking of saying, this company's not letting me grow. Maybe they will. So
it's free to the employer, free to the potential employee.
It's free to everybody.
Wow.
We don't charge you for anything.
Mike, All Search runs a little bit different of an operation.
Correct.
So there is a small fee generated to the employer. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that is only based upon hire. So if we go through the whole process, find you some candidates, and you interview some folks, but ultimately find someone on your own, there's no fee due to All Search. The only time a fee would be due is if you decide to hire someone that we present after we've screened them, you interview them a couple times, they start with your organization, then our fee would come into play.
Okay, and then you heard Chris mention how specific he can get, and maybe he targets 500 candidates. He narrows it down to 5. How tight of a search can you get out of your database?
Yeah, I would say we're more of a sharpshooter approach. So we're going to go to your local area, find everyone who's doing that exact job, and try to have those conversations with them to see if they're open to a new opportunity and present them the opportunity you guys can offer. But I would say for these kind of positions in the first couple of weeks, we're anywhere from 3 to 5 candidates that we've screened, gone over their background, their job history, and we think they're a good fit for our clients. And those first 2 weeks, we're going to send 5 profiles over, between 3 and 5.
That's really good. And then one other, another topic I'd like to touch base on is the labor pool right now. We talked about younger generations getting into the skilled trades. So that's very positive. I think the latest job reports was very promising. I think there was a low unemployment rate. What are you guys seeing? I mean, is there a lot more candidates out there right now, or do you think that the well has kind of dried up?
For us in Ocean County, there's a lot of people looking for work, but can't find it right now.
So would you say the jobs aren't there, or there's just extra candidates?
To be honest with you, I think people, when they put their resume in, it's not being picked up by the AIs of of Indeed, LinkedIn, or whoever, for whatever reason. And that's getting people kicked out. And when we were all younger, we would go to a place, knock on a door. Hey, I'm here with my resume.
Yeah.
We've gotten away from that. And somebody said, why? And I'm like, I don't know. But that's what I do. That's why I'll call Kyle. Hey, Kyle, you got anybody? You need anybody? Yeah, I need 5 laborers. All right, let me see what I can pull together.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what you're looking for. I could call Mike and say, hey, Mike, what are you looking for? Are you looking for any people that I can maybe send your way so you can do a referral, so you can make money?
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you make money.
Right.
But as long as my people are getting taken care of, that's what I want. That's my end game. I want everybody in Ocean County to have a job, because it's tough in Jersey.
It is. Mike, you seeing roughly the same thing out there?
I am. I would say it's very competitive right now. There are jobs for sure, but there's definitely a higher amount of candidates looking for those jobs. So companies have the opportunity to be a little more selective about who they're hiring. So it's definitely, one of the more competitive times in recent years for candidates trying to get a job.
The questions that I ask on the application is different than the questions I should ask on the interview. Is that kind of what you would say?
It's good because you can you have the answers already. And those are always good starting questions. And just to see how they are maybe different from what they're expecting you to say.
Right.
They're filling this out at home or at your office. But then you kind of at least have a cheat sheet.
Yeah.
And that's always a good thing. So you kind of know what they're going to say. And if it doesn't match up, well, you just wasted your time.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm sure you see a wide range of resumes and job applications. What are some of the questions other employers are asking, their potential candidates?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they run them through some scenarios. So if, say someone's estimating a job, they'll give them those numbers or blueprints and ask them to give them that rough estimate on the interview. Or they'll have some kind of personality assessment or a basic math assessment, just to kind of, get down to who that person really is. Because you won't see that on a resume. But being able to have them in front of you and have them run you through a scenario is really going to tell you the experience that person has.
That's a great answer. And I guess even if I'm doing the interview in the field, I mean, that's a great way to say, hey, how many block do you think I need here, on this foundation? Exactly. Or, one of the things we run into in our industry is guys figuring out square footage or shooting elevations. You ask a candidate, hey, can you run this job site? And of course they can. They've got 30 years experience. And then they get to the job site and, they don't know how to use the transit or the laser level. So that's a great answer, Mike, is maybe you take them to the job site on the first interview and how do I shoot this elevation, or how do I get past square footage, or, this retaining wall project, or I love that answer.
Yeah. And that helps the potential employee too, because they might think your job site is one thing, but then they get there and it's something completely different that they've never handled before. And then they could say, hey, Kyle, this really isn't for me. I can't do this. So it's kind of, a good way for you both to test each other out.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then let's talk a little bit about one of the hot topics in hiring. New Jersey has a cannabis. It's legal here in New Jersey.
Yep.
Is it legal in Pennsylvania, Mike?
Medically legal, not recreational.
Okay. So it's a hot topic here. Our insurance company does not allow us to test positive for cannabis. So we have a no drug policy. What are some of the things, you guys are seeing? I can tell you recently I walked into the store. The guys had the doors wide open. It was like 28 degrees outside. The heat is blaring. And I asked the sales guys, hey, why do we have the doors open? And here, somebody came walking in and forgot to exhale in the parking lot, I would say. And, they came in, and I don't want our store stinking like marijuana. So walk me through the legalities of it. And Mike, you may know this a little bit better than Chris and I, because they're going to have a medical card or show that. But can I still hire him even though it's medical, or how does that all work?
Great question. It's really depending on the company, like, and your insurance policies and things like that. I do know some companies do allow it where, if the person has a medical card, it's okay, but that person might also not be able to drive your truck. Car insurance might say that's a no-go. But we also have companies where it's recreational legal, say in New Jersey, but it's still federally illegal, right? Nationwide.
Correct.
So they just, that's their policy. It might be recreational legally, but federally it's no good. So that's our policy.
And I guess you just brought up another good point too, right? If I have a lawn crew, you're running equipment. So I would think that, that would fall under your insurance.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. In Jersey, if you have your CDL, you cannot.
Correct.
You cannot use.
Well, that's a federal thing. CDLs.
Federal, but even New Jersey adapted it also. If you're a doctor, if you're a police officer, or any medical or first responder or truck driver, you cannot use. Your insurance company says, no, we're going to drop that person or whatever. You have the right to say that, and that's your right. We've seen a lot of kids, young men, who have gone to driving school get booted out because they've tested positive.
CDL school?
CDL school. So they're like, oh, it's legal. Not for you guys, it's not.
Right. Not on a federal level, which your CDL is federal.
Right. And they don't understand that because they said, oh, Jersey, yeah, we can. To me, it doesn't matter. But, if I know that a company is going to have that background, I let them know.
Right.
Right. Like, again, they need to know what's going on. They're like, oh man, I need my nightly my nightly joint.
Right. No, I get it. To each their own, I guess.
Yeah.
But in our field, it becomes very hard.
Yeah.
You're running heavy equipment. Even if it's a drafting table or something like that, I suppose. We don't want you stoned out of your minds. We just can't have that. And again, it goes. Yeah. All right. So how do employers get a hold of you guys? If they're in the New Jersey, Ocean County market, Chris, how do they get a hold of Ocean County Pick?
Well, they can reach out, through the phone, through our phone number at 732-240-5995. If you're looking for me in particular, my extension is 5604. I deal with employers as well as potential employees.
Is there a website people can tune into?
We do have a website. It's ocpic.org.
Okay.
So you can go there, and we do have email. Everything's on the website so you can see who you want to get in touch with. But if you're looking for business services, which is, you have myself or my supervisor, Sylvia Hernandez, who will talk to you and help you get as set up as quickly as possible.
As an employer looking for labor or CDL drivers, is there a form to fill out with you guys?
No, not typically not unless you want to do a job order form. Then we need your information specifics. But just to have a conversation, nothing.
And again, just to reiterate, there's no fees.
No fees.
Okay.
We will never ask for it because that's not what we do. We just want to get people back to work and help you grow your business so you can expand.
You just said something that triggered something. And Mike, you may have a different experience than Chris is. After COVID, everybody's looking for employees. And it seems like it dried up. What happened to everybody during COVID? Either we all got lazier or something. What, is there a transition of, candidates? What's happening after COVID?
On my end, it seems like people only want remote work. They don't want to go out into the world. And that's really limiting their options. But the construction guys, they know they got to put their head down and keep plowing through.
Right. We got to pound the nails and all of that on the daily.
People are a lot looking for remote work, which has really dried up. I got to say, since around Christmas, it's really dried up.
Mike, you seeing the same thing, or I know you're still you're doing global work, so you get to be remote sometimes. But not all the time.
I'm remote. I'm remote forever. So I'm working from my basement, and it was actually one of the reasons I wanted to work for AllSearch was to be able to work remotely. I have two small sons. They're 4 and almost 2. So I wanted to be able to have that daily interaction, go eat lunch upstairs with them. So working remote was very important for me, and it still is. That's one of the questions we get all the time for a sales position, for a management type role. Hey, can I work remotely? Can I do a hybrid? A couple of days at home. I want to work from the beach this day and then get back to the office on Monday. We get that question all the time. But also, I do think during COVID, people went through career changes. They were like, oh, I don't want to do sales anymore. I want to work with my hands. I want to be like a woodworker, or I want to get outside more or work, somewhere out of the office. People just decided, I don't have to do this anymore. I can switch up my career. And it was a great time for a lot of people to do that. But now we're getting a little bit back more to normalcy, I feel like.
Well, that's an interesting point because we were one of the only industries in New Jersey, at least, that never got shut down. I don't know what Pennsylvania and other markets were, but we never got shut down here. There was a couple close calls. So to hear, and we did see a lot of new businesses develop during COVID.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's interesting that people did have a career change and maybe, into the trades because we weren't shut down.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do employers or employees get in touch with you, Mike, at AllSearch?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can reach out to us at allsearchinc.com. That's allsearchinc.com. Or I can be reached at 717-797-2729.
And then as an employer, I've worked with you, and it's been a pleasure. There was a small fee associated with the candidate we had hired. I don't remember. Is there a form or anything that I had to fill out stating what I was looking for?
Yeah. So Kyle, you actually found us. You visited I think you Googled construction recruiter or something like that and found our website. And there is a job submission form where you basically can type in what you're looking for, how you can be reached, job duties, things like that. And then we will reach out to you and have that conversation. And there's no cost to fill out that form.
Right. Yeah. I remember there not being a cost until you, like you said earlier, found the right candidate. So I thank you for that. Any other topics I didn't cover tonight? You guys are more than welcome to, it's an open dialogue. So tell me whatever it is you want to tell me, if there's anything I didn't cover.
I just had one more point on the marijuana thing. We talked about applications a ton. Might be a good place to have your policy to kind of weed out those folks. If someone does need to smoke or has their medical card, if you have it right there on your application, here's our policy. That's there in black and white. It might eliminate some future headaches for you guys as well as the employee. Great point.
How about for the employer, everybody should have a handbook.
Yeah.
Right?
There should be a handbook, or at least, it doesn't have to be a physical book, but at least something that they can hand everybody and say, these are your rules, you got to follow them, or
and that circles back to expectations.
Yeah.
Okay. If I hand you out the company handbook, whether it's through your payroll company, I think that's how we do ours. We make everybody sign off on it. It doesn't, I'd have to ask my wife, but I don't think it costs anything to have the employee handbook through the payroll company, but we make everybody sign off on it at date of hire. That you got it, you read it. These are our expectations. You're going to test negative on random tests. You're going to wear the company wardrobe. Okay, wear khaki pants and a blue Staff of Stone shirt, which is another thing we didn't talk about, and maybe this is the time to bring it up. Is what are we seeing for guys in the fields? Okay, personally, and I know this to be a fact, that if you have a standard look or a company uniform, it warrants more money.
Seeing a company come in wearing the same shirt, that there's some sort of pride.
Yep.
That they are here to work and they're here to get a job done and be professional.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the things that do come across by everybody wearing a
uniform. Yeah, absolutely. Mike, same thing?
Same thing. That also kind of goes into the company culture too.
Good point.
Everyone's looking sharp, wearing the same thing. You guys are showing up with the expectations of we're going to be professional, wearing the same uniform. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're doing residential work, it also tells that homeowner you're a company here to stay, right? You're investing in your employees. And the way you look, we're setting the expectation of our company work. Okay. We have a good work ethic. We're coming to do a top-notch job. So therefore that's why we're, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 more expensive than the guy that showed up with a collared, a ripped collared shirt. He's got the U-neck and holes all in it. You got to be professional in everything you do. It's how you carry yourself. It's who you are. It's your character. It's the business's integrity. But getting back to the handbook, is there anything you guys recommend to putting in that handbook to set the expectations? We talked about the marijuana policy. Your PTO is in that in that book. What else should be in that book?
But I think setting the expectations of what you expect from your employees is great to have in there.
Hours, maybe that's something else you put in your handbook. And we tell everybody up front, we work a 50-hour week. We try to rotate you in and out, but it doesn't always work that way. We're going to get you your 40 hours, but expect a little extra. And the guys don't seem to mind. No. Well, guys, that's kind of all I've got for you guys. I thank you for coming in tonight. Mike Decker from All Search, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Chris from New Jersey, or Ocean County pick.
And I got to make one slight adjustment.
Sure.
The website, I gave you the wrong website.
Okay, not a problem.
I don't use my own website.
I don't use mine either.
So it's Ocean County PIC.org.
Okay.
So I was close.
OceanCountyPick.org.
OceanCountyPick.org.
All right. Well, I appreciate that so much. And again, guys, thank you so much. Thank you for giving us your service. Thank you for the candidates. Same as to you, Mike. Thank you for the candidate you've given me. And to the homeowners, thank you for checking out the Hardscape Huddle presented by Staff of Stone. We look forward to the next episode.